The first turn is the usual again, with Sam playing a tapped Canopy Vista, John playing a tapped Rockfall Veil, Tom playing a tapped Frostboil Snarl, and Extra playing a tapped Blood Crypt. Sam then kicks off the first proper turn of the game and plays a Glacial Fortress, then casts the Goose Mother, where X equals 0. He passes to John. John plays a Mountain and casts Farseek for a Ketria Triome before passing to Tom. Tom plays a Port Town for turn, revealing an island to have it come in untapped. He casts his Doctor's Companion, Rose Tyler, then passes it to Extra. Extra plays a Mountain and taps 2 for Impact Tremors before passing. Sam plays a Command Tower for his turn, then reaches with Kadama for a Plains into play tapped and a Forest into his hand. He attacks John with the Goose Mother and passes. John plays a Mountain for turn, then casts his own Doctor's Companion, Jasmine Khan. He passes to Tom. Tom plays an island, followed by a Commander Sphere. He suspends Shivan Sandmage with 4 time counters on it. He attacks Sam with Rose Tyler, who gets to put a time counter on herself on her attack trigger, pumping her by +1/+1. Sam takes the damage. Then Extra moves to his turn. Extra plays Knight's Whisper, drawing 2 and losing 2 life. He plays a Haunted Ridge for turn, then passes. Sam plays a Dreamroot Cascade for turn. He casts Reki, the History of Kamigawa, followed by Benny Brack's Zoologist. Reki triggers on the cast, and Sam draws a card. He then passes to John. On his turn, John taps Jasmine, exiling the top card of his library. He then casts Cultivate for 2 forests, 1 into his hand, and 1 onto the field. He plays the second forest from his hand right after, then taps 2 for Kiura's Follower. He then passes to Tom. On Tom's upkeep, he removes a time counter from Shivan Sandmage. He plays a Shivan Reef for turn. He casts the Lost and the Damned, then suspends Riftbolt from his hand, putting a time counter on it. He swings Rose at Sam, and Rose gets 2 more time counters. With nothing else, he passes to Extra. Extra plays a Mountain for turn, then casts Fellhide Spiritbinder, dealing 1 to each of his opponents thanks to Impact Tremors as the Minotaur enters the field. Tapped out, Extra passes the turn back to Sam. Sam plays a Sea of Clouds for turn. He casts Inga and Essica, triggering Reki and drawing a card. He attacks Tom with all of his available creatures. Tom declares no blocks, and Sam goes to his second main. He casts the 4th Doctor, triggering both Reki and Inga and Essica, drawing a total of 2 cards. He then passes to John. John activates Jasmine, exiling the top card of his library. He then casts a Soul Ring from exile. He taps 3 for Jessica's Will, and the spell resolves, and John adds 6 red to his pool and exiles 3 from the top of his library. He casts Chandra, Torture Defiance from exile. He plays Dreamroot Cascade from exile as his land drop. He activates Kiura's Follower, untapping Soul Ring. He casts his commander, the 13th Doctor. He follows her up with a Volcanic Torrent from exile, triggering 13 to put a 1/1 counter on Kiura's Follower, then cascading into Chaos Warp. He chooses to warp Tom's Lost and the Damned, triggering 13 on cast and putting a 1/1 counter on Jasmine. Then the spell resolves, and Tom flips Sacred Foundry off the top for his trouble. Volcanic Torrent then resolves, dealing enough damage to completely wipe John's opponent's boards. Not quite finished, John then pluses Chandra, adding 2 red. He casts Ren's Resolve, exiling 2 from the top. He plays Birds of Paradise, then finally moves to his end step. He untaps Jasmine and Kiura's Follower thanks to his commander. Then Tom gets to play Magic again. On Tom's upkeep, he removes a time counter from both Shivan Sandmage and Riftbolt. He casts Riftbolt for free, targeting Kiura's Follower. In response, John activates Jasmine, then untaps her with Kiura's Follower, before letting the spell resolve. Tom plays an island for turn. He casts Midnight Clock, then casts his commander, David Tennant. He passes to Extra. On Extra's upkeep, Tom puts an hour counter on Midnight Clock. Extra plays a Mountain for turn, then casts Minion Reflector, before passing. On Sam's upkeep, Tom puts an hour counter on Midnight Clock. In his main phase, Sam plays Badalkan Orrery. He plays Vine Glimmer Snarl as his land for turn. With nothing in mind for the moment, Sam passes to John, who taps Yasmin to exile from the top before moving to his turn. On John's upkeep, Tom puts an hour counter on Midnight Clock. He activates Yasmin to exile the top card, plays a mountain from exile. He casts Escape the Wilds, exiling 5 from the top of his library. He plays another mountain from exile, thanks to Escape the Wild. He then casts Goblin and Narcomancer from exile, putting a 1/1 counter on Birds of Paradise with his commander. He pluses Chandra, adding 2 red. He casts Glencalli Hunter from exile, putting a 1/1 counter on his Goblin and Narcomancer with his commander. He casts Tady, Primal Storm from exile, for free thanks to Hunter's ability, and puts a 1/1 counter on said Hunter. He moves to his end step, untapping Yasmin and his birds with his commander. On Tom's upkeep, he puts an hour counter on Midnight Clock and removes a time counter from Sand Mage. He plays a River Glide Pathway for turn, then casts Joyra of the Gitu, before passing to Extra. On Extra's upkeep, Tom puts an hour counter on Midnight Clock. Extra plays a Swamp, an Arcane Signet, and a Mind Stone, then passes to Sam. On Sam's upkeep, Tom puts an hour counter on Midnight Clock. Sam plays a Forest for turn, then passes. On Sam's end step, John activates Yasmin. Then Tom responds with a Path to Exile to get Tady out of the way. The spell resolves, and John gets an island. Before the turn ends, Sam also chimes in by using Rapid Hybridization to destroy Yasmin and give John a 3/3 Frog Lizard. John then finally moves to his turn, with Tom putting an hour counter on Midnight Clock. He casts Valakut Exploration from exile, putting a 1/1 counter on his 3/3 token with his commander. He plays Command Tower from exile, triggering Valakut and exiling 1 from the top. He pluses Chandra, this time impulse drawing a land, and having Chandra deal 2 to each opponent. He casts the Adventure half of Questing Druid from exile, putting a 1/1 counter on his commander this time. He casts Nature's Lore from exile, putting a 1/1 counter on his Frog Lizard again, and putting a forest onto the field. Impulse drawing thanks to Valakut. He plays Kami of Celebration from exile for 0 mana, thanks to the Hunter, putting a counter on Goblin and Archomancer. He plays a Bloodbraid Elf from exile, cascading into Incubation Druid. Both cast Trigger 13 and the Kami, and John puts a 1/1 counter on the Frog Lizard twice, once on the Kami, and once on the Hunter. John keeps going, casting Kadama's Reach from exile, getting 2 forests, triggering Valakut off the forest entering the field, exiling from the top. John casts a Gyre Sage from exile, putting a counter on Bloodbraid Elf with 13, and 1 on Incubation Druid with the Kami. John then realizes he hasn't even gone to combat yet, and goes to correct his mistake by swinging his pumped up board at extra, triggering Kami 5 times, exiling 5 from the top of his library. In his second main, he casts Falden, Dreadwolf Herald from exile, putting 2 1/1 counters on Gyre Sage. He casts Rampant Growth from exile, getting a mountain, and triggering Kami, 13, and Valakut, as well as Falden, also making a 2/2 wolf. It's at this point that John's opponents collectively decide to concede, as he's way too far ahead of everybody else. And John takes the win.